Okay, so now that you spent some time learning how to multiply polynomials, let's talk about how to divide polynomials. And just like multiplication, I'm going to walk you through a couple of types of division. First, I'm going to show you a few different methods for dividing by a monomial, and then I'll show you how to divide by larger polynomials, mostly binomials. Okay, so let's start off with this. We're going to do a binomial, and we're going to divide by a monomial. I'm writing it as a fraction because fraction means divide. Okay, so dividing by a monomial is really, really simple. The way that you divide by a monomial is you take whatever your numerator was and split it apart and put each one of the parts over your denominator. So what does that look like? Well, the first part here was 6m squared. So I'm going to do 6m squared over 2m. Plus the second part, which was 2m over 2m. So basically what I've done is gone back a step. This is like I had two fractions with a common denominator that I added together to get this. Now I'm doing the opposite. I'm pulling apart my two fractions with a common denominator. Now that I've done that, the final step to do this division is to reduce each one of those fractions. So 6m squared divided by 2m reduces to, well,
3m?
Yep, 6 divided by 2 and m squared divided by m, plus 2m divided by 2m. What's anything divided by itself? 1.
2m.
So if the m cancels out?
M over m is 1. 2 over 2 is 1. Anything divided by itself is 1. Always. That's it for dividing by monomials. You split it apart and you reduce all the fractions.
Wait, what about the exponent? You just like drop out?
Oh, it didn't drop out. It divided. Let me finish writing this and I'll go back and show you. M squared divided by m is m. 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom. The 1 on the bottom cancels one of the 2 on the top. There we go. Okay, here's another one. This is a trinomial divided by a monomial. Same idea. You split it apart. (9x to the 5th over 3x squared) minus 12x squared over 3x squared plus 3x over 3x squared. I'm really going to put you to the test today on whether or not you remember those exponent rules that we learned a couple of weeks ago. I assume yes. We'll find out. And now that I split them apart, I just reduced the fraction. So 9 divided by 3.
3.
And then x to the 5th divided by x squared is?
3.
No.
5.
X to the 3rd. Minus 12 divided by 3 is? X squared divided by x squared is just gone. Now here's where it gets tricky. It's 3 divided by 3, that's 1. But what's x divided by x squared? It's x, but on the bottom. The bigger exponent was on the bottom. So this one is 1 over x. X on the bottom because the bigger exponent was on the bottom. There's what that looks like. Okay, let's do one more monomial one. Okay. Step 1 is to split them apart. We're still reducing. The reducing is just a little harder here because there's multiple variables. So let's reduce this one. 8 divided by 4. X squared divided by x. And y squared divided by y. Good. Minus 16 divided by 4 is 4. And the x over x and the y over y cancel out. That's just 1, so don't worry about that. Plus, so the x's are going to cancel, right?
Yep.
And the 2/4 reduces to 1/2. And the y is on the bottom.
Oh.
And that's how you divide by a monomial. Huh? Yeah, it's really not too bad. If you want a bad one, you have to divide by a binomial. Hey everybody, let's divide by a binomial. Yeah, these are really gonna bake your noodle a little bit, I'm sorry to say. You'll be all right. You'll be all right. Really gonna bake your noodle. Okay, so before I show you how to divide by a binomial, we're gonna go back in time. A long, long time ago, all the way back to probably, I'm guessing 3rd, maybe 4th grade, when you would come home from school and tell your mom you were a genius because you could do long division. Now, you don't necessarily need to write this in your notes, but I do want to review the process because it's the same. So, pretend like I'm a 3rd grader and you're teaching me long division. What do I do first? You messed up already? Oh, you disgust me. So what you just said is an extremely common thing to say. It's so common, I'll probably mess up and say it myself even though it's wrong. The thing you said was, how many times does 4 go into 32? That doesn't mean anything. How many times will 4 go into 32? That is not math. Go into is not a math operation. What are you actually asking? Divide. What's 32 divided by, well, really you should say, what's 3 divided by 4? And the answer is less than 1. Then you move on to the next one. 32 divided by 4 is 8. So we put the 8 right on top of the 2 in 32, right? Then what? By the way, that's not really an 8, and that wasn't really a 32. That was really a 3200, and that was an 800. You see why? This was 3275. And when we wrote the 8 up there, we wrote the 8 in the hundreds column, so that's really 800. What we were really doing was, how many times can 3200 be divided by 4? And the answer was 800. That'll be relevant in a second. Just keep it in the back of your mind. What do we do now? 8 times 4, right? Which is 32. Then what? Subtract. 32 minus 32 is 0. Bring down the 7. Now really, that's not a 7. It's really a 70 because it's in the tens column. So we're bringing down 70. Goes in. Ugh. What's 7 divided by 4? It's 1 with a little bit left over, right? So we're going to put a 1 here, which is really a 10. We're putting it on the tens column. 70 divided by 4 is about 10. So 1 times 4 is 4. And then we subtract. Bring down the 5, which is actually a 5, because it's in the ones column. 35 divided by 4 is 8, about, little bit, 8 and some change, yeah, left over. Let's try not to use the word remainder because that's coming up. Then we do 8 times 4, which is 32, and subtract. So we have a remainder of 3, and let me just tell you, if your 3rd grade teacher told you that the way you wrote that was to come up to the top and put R3, she owes you an apology. Wrong. R3? Absolutely not. How do you write a remainder of 3?
0.3.
Okay, that's not as bad as R3, but still pretty gross. What would the next thing that we do be if we kept going? We do 3 divided by 4. That's your remainder, 3/4. Your remainder is a fraction. If they told you R3, they did you a disservice. You should demand an apology.
Before it passed on.
Well, harder for them to issue an apology, but they better do it anyway.
It's okay, they'll haunt you.
Okay, they are haunting you. It's been years and their bad lessons are still coming back to bite you. Now, the reason we did that kind of silly problem is so you could do this. Because although this problem that I just wrote looks like a nightmare, and in a lot of ways it kind of is a nightmare, it functions more or less the same as that long division problem we just did. It's more or less the same. Now, the hardest part for you to wrap your head around is that when you are dividing by x plus 3, we really only pay attention to the x. The 3 is going to take care of itself. We are just focused on the x. Okay, don't worry about the 3. And here's what I mean by that. When we start the problem, up here the first thing we said was, what's 32 divided by 4? That's where the 8 came from. We're going to do the same thing here. What's x squared divided by x? X. So we're going to put x up here on the top. But just like we lined up the hundreds column, the tens column, and the ones column, we're going to line up the x's. So the answer is x. I'm putting it above the 7x. I'm putting it in the x column. So that the x's stay lined up. Okay. Then what did we do? Well, we did 8 times 4 and got the 32. So that's going to be our next step. We're going to do x times x plus 3. Let's do it. So x times x, x squared. X times 3, 3x. Okay, after that, what did we do? We subtracted. So I'm going to subtract both of these. Subtract x squared and subtract 3x. X squared minus x squared is 0. What's 7x minus 3x? 4x. Okay, after we subtracted, what was our next step? Brought down the 7, brought down the next thing. So here we're going to bring down the plus 12. After we brought down the 7, what did we do? Well, we did 7 divided by 4, right? So that's what we're going to do next. 4x divided by x is 4. Yeah, 4x divided by x is 4. So that's going to go here in the ones column, positive 4. Putting it in the numbers column. Then we multiply. 4 times x, 4x. 4 times 3, 12. And then we subtract. 4x minus 4x is 0, and 12 minus 12 is also 0, so no remainder in this problem. The answer is x plus 4. Now, I feel great about that problem. I feel like we nailed it. Good job, everybody. USA #1. However, if you'd gotten to the end of that problem and you thought, you know, there was a lot of places in there I could have messed up, is there a way to check my answer? You can. You take your answer, x plus 4, you multiply by your divisor, x plus 3, to verify that you got, I want to say dividend? One of these is divisor and one of them is the dividend. I get them mixed up all the time. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So let's multiply. X times, let's specify that we're checking our work now. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 3 is 12. And then we combine the x's. Is this equivalent to the thing we divided?
Yeah.
Yes, that tells us x plus 4 was the correct answer. So this is going to take some practice to get it right. It's going to take a little while. That's okay, we got nothing but time. None of y'all have anything else to do except practice this day and night, right? So you're going to be fine.
Sure.
You're going to be fine. I know what you're thinking. My family, my children. Listen, you want a college education? You got to live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else. All right, one of the reasons why I hate the phrase go into, not what we're doing. What is 6x squared divided by 3x?
2x.
2x, which I put on top of the x's in the x column. And then
Minus 1 into 6x squared.
huh? You multiply. This times this.
Oh.
2x times 3x is 6x squared. And 2x times negative 1 is negative 2x. And then what? Subtract. So the 6x squareds are gone. The minus 2x changed into a plus x when we subtracted. Minus a negative is plus. So that'll be 12x. And then bring down the minus 5. Then what?
3x into 12x.
Yep. 12x divided by 3x is?
6x.
No. To both of you? 12x divided by 3x is 4. Positive 4. So 4 times 3x is the 12x. And 4 times negative 1 is negative 4.
So you're kind of going backwards.
Sure.
Because you're using your answer up top to actually do the lines.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Then we subtract. Minus, minus. Negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. I've got a remainder. So I guess I'll just go up to the top and write r negative 1 and call it a day.
Hold on. Not so quick.
Or I'll make the math gods smile upon me by writing the remainder correctly, which is to put minus 1 over 3x minus 1. That is the answer. Great. The most important part of doing these problems is that you get everything lined up. Notice when we got to the end, the x squareds are all lined up on top of each other, the x's are all lined up, and the numbers are all lined up. That is really, really important. As a matter of fact, if you make a mistake or get confused on a problem, it will likely be because you didn't get everything lined up correctly. Let me give you an example of how this can go awry.
And Austin says you can't change the order that these are done.
Not only can you change the order, you should change the order so that it goes from highest exponent to lowest. So that's one of the problems, is the numerator's in the wrong order. What's the other problem with the numerator?
They're probably not in the right place.
Are we missing anything? We're missing the x. We have x to the third, x to the second, and a number, but we don't have plain x. To divide polynomials, you have to have something for every one of those degrees. So when we rewrite it, the denominator is fine. I'm just going to rewrite the numerator. We put it in order. So biggest exponent, then the next biggest, and we have to put an x in there or we can't do the problem. Now I can't just do plus x, that changes the problem. So instead I do plus 0x. Now I technically have an x in the problem, but it's a 0, so it's not going to change the answer. Now I'm ready to divide. The thing on top goes inside the, I don't actually know what this thing is called. What's a little line called? Anybody know? I have no idea.
Just call it a house.
A house? That's probably not right.
A house for the number.
Some math guy definitely made up a name for the house. I want to know what the name. Well, you know, I got a computer right here. Let's ask my friend Google. What's the name of the division symbol? Ah, it's called an obelus. O-B-E-L-U-S. Obelus. Oh no, I'm sorry. The obelus is this thing. That's the obelus.
So what's the volume?
I don't know.
What's the division house called?
It's called a vinculum.
There.
I knew there was a name. Vinculum. I can't believe you guys didn't know that. Embarrassing. All right, here we go. Now you at least learned one thing in math class tonight. That's called a vinculum. All right, here we go. 8x cubed divided by 2x.
4x.
4x squared. So we stack it on the x squared column. And then we multiply. That's exactly right. 4x squared times 2x is 8x cubed. Okay. Then 4x squared times 3 is 12x squared.
That would be plus.
Right, but we're going to subtract them, so minus, minus.
So the first one zeroes out.
That one zeroes out. Yep, this is minus 8x squared. Hey, we're going to have a negative here, because what's negative 8x squared divided by 2x? Negative 4x. Negative 4x times 2x is negative 8x squared. And then negative 4x times 3 is minus 12x. Oop, we forgot a step. What did we forget? I missed one. Forgot to bring down the 0. Sorry about that. And then we subtract. Now these are both already minus signs, and when you subtract the negative, they become pluses. which is good news. The 8x squareds are gone, and 0 plus 12 is 12. Notice how the x's are all lined up in this column. X squareds, x cubes, everything's going according to plan. What's next? Bring down the plus 7. So 2x and 12x. What's 12x divided by 2x? 6. And then we multiply. 6 times 2x is 12x. And 6 times 3 is 18. And then we subtract. Negative 11 then is our remainder. It'll be minus 11 over 2x plus 3. Not our negative 11, you psychopaths. There's a question similar to this on your final exam that has a remainder, and I think if you write R negative 11 for your answer, that gives me grounds to just fail you for the whole semester. Even if you get every other question right, I feel like that alone should disqualify you from ever getting a math credit. All right, let's do one more of these. Because what I just showed you is what to do when you're missing an x from the thing you're dividing by, or sorry, the thing you are dividing. What happens when it's the thing you're dividing by? This is the worst that they get, so we saved the best for last. So there's my, I really should figure out the difference. Divisor, dividend, whatever, doesn't matter. That one's fine, not skipping anything, not missing anything, but on the bottom, okay, I'm missing something. Well, x cubed I don't necessarily need, but I do need the x that goes in between. Okay, so this is going to look a little fruity whenever I write it out. But the thing that goes inside the vinculum is 2x to the 4th minus x cubed plus 3x squared plus x minus 1. On the outside, where the x squared plus 1 goes, I have to include the thing I'm missing. I'm missing 0x. So I got to do x squared plus 0x plus 1. Now this looks bad, and that's because it is bad, but we still follow the same process, which is that I'm really only going to divide by the x squared and let the other stuff work itself out. Okay, so step 1, 2x to the 4th divided by x squared. 2x squared, so I put it in the x squared column. Now we multiply. 2x squared times x squared is 2x to the 4th. 2x squared times 0x is going to be 0x cubed. And 2x squared times 1 is 2x squared. Notice that we included the x cubed even though it was 0, just so everything lines up. And then we subtract. Minus 0 and plus 0 are the same, so minus minus. So 2x to the 4th minus 2x to the 4th is 0. Negative x cubed plus 0x cubed is negative x cubed. And then 3x squared minus 2x squared is 1x squared. Bring down the x. Okay. Now our first in line is negative x cubed. So negative x cubed divided by x squared is negative x. And then we multiply. Negative x times x squared, negative x cubed. Negative x times 0x is 0x squared. And negative x times 1 is minus x. And then subtract, which means all my minuses will turn into pluses. And x plus x is 2x. And then bring down the minus 1. Good. The end is near. X squared divided by x squared is 1. 1 times x squared. Good. 1 times 0x. And 1 times 1. And then we subtract. Minus, minus, minus. X squared minus x squared is 0. 2x minus 0x is 2x. And negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. Which means we got a remainder. It's 2x minus 2. So on the end, plus 2x minus 2 over. And when you write with the divisor, or dividend, whichever one it is, you can leave out the 0. X squared plus. It's okay to keep the 0 in there, but now that I'm writing the answer, I can take it back out. Any questions about dividing polynomials?